On May 16, 2010, shortly after midnight, officers Lockhart and Fillak were on uniform patrol for the Cape Coral Police Department as a two-man car. They were dispatched to a suspicious person in the area of Northwest 35th Avenue and Yucatan Parkway. For the rest of us, that's way up north. Okay? The 911 caller, later identified as Mr. Mannino, called us and told us that he observed a male on a bicycle that looked as if he was casing cars in the neighborhood, casing cars looking to break in. And at the time, we had a rash of car break-ins in that area. Mr. Mannino advised that he was in his maroon Ford F-150 and was following. He made that choice that Mr. Schwing talked about to not only call and get involved, but he followed the gentleman at a safe distance to beat our eyes and ears until our officers got there. Our officers found Mr. Mannino's Ford F-150 and shortly thereafter found the man on a bicycle that was wearing a black sleeveless T-shirt after midnight, carrying a black backpack in that neighborhood. Mr. Mannino then backed off and the officers were able to interact with the suspect. The suspect got off of his bike. They noticed he was riding his bike with no headlights and no taillights. And that gave our officers the ability to stop this gentleman as a traffic stop on a bicycle for a safety infraction to look a little bit deeper and see if he was, in fact, car hopping or in any type of other criminal activity. They got him off the bike. They did notice he was wearing a black shirt, black pants, and had a black backpack that he took off and set onto the grass. Experienced officers as they are, they noticed that he started looking towards an open field and making movements as if he was going to take off. They noticed that he had something in his hand, and it turned out to be a baggie of pills. So not only was he loitering and prowling, he was in possession of narcotics. They decided to detain him. They realized that they had enough to make an arrest. And also in his possession they found, a Garmin GPS that would be in a car. That anybody that does this type of work would tell me or tell you, he had been breaking into cars, and this is one of the things that he took. It's a very popular item to steal. It's a GPS. We'll get back to the GPS. They looked in his bag, incident to arrest, to inventory his property. And in this bag, in this backpack that he had 2 4-inch non-folding knives, like daggers, a dark pair of jeans, a change of shoes, a pair of gloves, 4-gallon-sized plastic bags. What else did he have? Alcohol, a book of matches, and a box cutter. Not something that a typical bicyclist would be traveling with. As he was arrested and brought to the station and they were inventorying that property, we decided on the GPS there was an address on it that wasn't too far from there. Let's see if they were the victim of the burglary. They went to that address. There was no burglary there. There was a young lady, and by chance, Sergeant Costa's here. I put him on the spot. He went to the house as well. He was supervising these gentlemen and asked if she knew the suspect. And indeed she did. They were in a violent relationship. They share a child in common. She hasn't seen him in about 8 years, and the reason she left him because of his violence. Further interviews at the station, the detective spoke with him, and he was telling that he was out to see a friend. He couldn't name the friend. He was not in the right area. He was one street away from that ex-girlfriend's house. And when he finally came off of the story, he said he had been watching the house for a while. He found out where his ex-girlfriend lived. He was hoping that his daughter would come outside so he could, in his words, see her. And he had all of these weapons just in case his ex and her brother, who lives there, were to give him any trouble when he was going to see his daughter. And the change of clothes and some other things like that. So it doesn't take much of a leap for us to realize that there was some very imminent danger for this woman, and possibly for this child and her brother who lived there. So because of that 4th C, that cooperation, and actually getting involved, Mr. Mannino calling us, taking that extra step to follow the suspect, and our officers checking out with them and going from A to Z, and the conclusion of the story through many court appearances, depositions, Mr. Mannino taking time off of his busy work to actually go and follow up with us. He's been sentenced to, is it 5 years in prison?
I believe so.
I believe 5 years in prison he was sentenced to. So a life was saved, and good cooperation was had. And I congratulate you both, or all 3 of you. Thank you. Yeah.